Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. In today's video, we'll be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of bottom watering. A lot of people were asking questions related with bottom watering, how and when to do bottom watering. So in this video, we'll be talking about both the advantages and disadvantages. Now when I'm talking about disadvantages, they are not bad. If you are going to work a little bit with them, it will turn out into an advantage. But you have to put in a little bit more efforts in order to turn the disadvantage into an advantage. Now what exactly is bottom watering? You just take a tray, fill it with little bit of water. You do not need to completely fill it with water. As and when you add the pots, in case if you feel that the level of water is less, then you can add in a little bit water. The entire purpose of bottom watering is not to wet the succulent leaves or the succulent. So what we do is we have filled this tray with water, and now I'm just going to take the succulent and place it like this. Now what happens over here is everything works on the capillary action. The water starts gushing into the drain hole, and through the drain hole the water starts coming up, and then the surface of the soil also tends to get wet. Once you notice that the surface of the soil is wet, it's time to take out the pot. It's pretty simple. Now talking about the advantage, as you all know, the succulent is very safely watered. There is a very low risk of overwatering your succulents, because in this we do not physically add water from the upper portion. In this process, the soil does not get soggy wet, but it only turns out to be moist wet. I don't know if that makes sense, but there is a slight difference. Bottom watering is going to bottom watering tends to water your succulent in a way wherein the soil is moist wet and not soggy wet. Soggy wet is when you tend to water your soil from above. The water tends to fall from above and then it tends to get soggy wet, and over the period of time that water starts to drain out, which is like the top watering. So now over here, this completely depends upon your container. The smaller your container, the faster bottom watering will be achieved. Over here, this is a very small pot. If I'm going to be talking about a pot of this size, this is going to take a slightly longer period of time, and this is going to happen within probably a minute or so. You can see it's already starting, the upper layer of the soil is already starting to get wet. So this works out really well. Another advantage is, as I said, you do not drop any water on the succulent leaves, which is the most important part, because if the water stays onto these leaves, then there is a high chance that the succulent might get rotted. But in this case, we do not drop any water on the succulents. And at the same time, if you have a lot of succulents in smaller pots like this, if you have a larger tray, you can water, depending upon the tray size. Even if your tray can accommodate around 20 pots, you can water 20 pots in just one go. You can leave this aside and you can attend your other plants. So in that way, it is very time efficient. You do not need to put in a lot of efforts. So as we spoke about, not dropping water onto the leaves, watering a large amount of succulents in one go, not overwatering your succulents, because as I said, the soil only gets moist wet but not soggy wet. So you do not have a risk of overwatering your succulents. Apart from that, you can even use bottom watering for leaf propagation as well. As we all know, we should never wet the mother leaf. So bottom watering turns out to be the best option when it comes to watering your leaf propagation as well. Talking about the disadvantages, as I said, the smaller the pot, faster the soil will get wet. At the same rate, the soil will also tend to dry. So if you belong to a place which is very, very dry, or which is very warm, then the soil will dry much faster compared to your top watering. So in that case, you'll have to frequently check when your soil is drying. Probably you can mark it down in your notepad or a diary, as in when you know that when your soil is drying, you can increase your frequency of bottom watering. But again, you have to ensure that the soil is completely bone dry and only do bottom watering then. Just because this is the safest way to water does not mean that we are going to misuse this and water our succulents every day. You shouldn't do bottom watering every day, because again, the soil has to dry before you water your succulents. So in that way, the only disadvantage is that the soil will dry much faster compared to top watering. because as I said, in top watering the soil will be soggy wet. In this, the soil is only moist wet. There's a very slight difference, so you'll have to increase your frequency depending upon the environment that you stay in. Apart from that, another disadvantage of bottom watering is that if your pot is very big, definitely you cannot lift up your pot and put it into it. Apart from that, the bigger the pot, it's going to take much more time and it won't be able to accommodate a large number of pots. So that is one of the disadvantage that we have with bottom watering. But again, that can be taken care. If you have smaller pots, you can just keep adding. Depending upon the size of your tray, you can keep adding as many succulents as you want. I personally prefer to do bottom watering. Again, I have a hands-on experience on checking with the soil, so I know exactly when and when not to water. But if you are a beginner, you will have to do a little bit of checking here and there and then do your bottom watering. Now, another thing with bottom watering, the problem is the deposition of minerals on the upper layer of soil. Now usually when we water our succulents from above, the water starts passing through the drain hole, and every time when we tend to water our succulents, the minerals keep getting pushed down and then they start passing out from the drain hole. But in bottom watering, as you know, the water enters from beneath with the help of capillary action, and then it starts to wet the soil. Now when you tend to do your bottom watering on a regular basis and you reduce the top watering and you just rely on bottom watering, over the period of time you will start noticing that there is going to be a lot of mineral deposition on the surface of your soil. Now this is happening very often with me because I've recently shifted to a new place. The new place has really hard water. The quality of water is hard water, so the mineral deposits are much higher compared to what it was earlier, and I've started noticing it just within a month. So that can also be taken care. I will let you know how you can take care of it. So I'm going to show you what exactly it tends to look like. Now over here I have this pot of succulents. These are still in the recovery mode. These are my Prolifica variegated, a very rare succulent. They were damaged a lot during the transport, but they are slowly starting to recover. But if you're going to see over here, so this is what I was talking about. You can see it's very minimum right now because it has just started. It's at the edge as well. It tends to look like salt because obviously the tap water also tends to contain a little bit of salt and other minerals. So when the water starts to get evaporated, this is how it's going to look like. This over here on the tip of the rocks, usually the stones that are slightly elevated from the surface of the soil, you'll start noticing these white flaky mineral deposition on these rocks. Now just because I said it's salt, you do not need to be worried because this is not only salt, it also contains other minerals as well, and you do not need to be worried. Your succulents will not get harmed. Please don't go according to this succulent. This succulent was dehydrated and then it was knocked off from the pot. That's why it looks a little sad. Most of my pots have this mineral deposition, and I'm going to tell you how you can get rid of it. So this is how it looks like. Now the mineral quantity is very, very less. The salt in this is going to be very, very minimum. So in this case, what you can do is just till the soil a little bit, not much. Just move the soil a little bit, just the upper layer of soil. Try to just mix the upper layer of the soil like this before you do a top watering. Now there are ways how you can avoid this. One is you can either use distilled water or you can use old water. Now when I say old water, it's basically you let the tap water sit in a bucket for at least 24 hours so that all those minerals they deposit at the bottom of the bucket, and then you can use it. Because right now I was using just direct tap water. After moving to the new place, I was not able to set up my pond. I was not able to move a lot of stuff, and that's the reason why my only option right now is using the direct tap water. Otherwise, I usually used to let the water sit in the bucket for at least 24 hours because I have a lot of succulents and it's going to be very difficult to use the drinking water or the distilled water. It's going to be very difficult to water so many of them. So I know I was trying to get into a shortcut of using tap water, but I can see a lot of, but again, there is nothing to be worried. As I said, you can just till the upper layer of the soil and then just do the top watering like this. So with this, Now what you can do over here is, let's say that in a month, like if you're doing the bottom watering 3 times in a month, then what you can do is the 2 times you do bottom watering, try doing top watering the 3rd time, and the next month you can start once with top watering and then do bottom watering twice. So in that way you can just create a balance with your watering. So what is going to happen is, in case if there is any mineral deposition, now it's not going to happen with 1 or 2 waterings. This happens when you do couple of times, like probably 5 or 6 times when you tend to do, that's when this starts to show up. So it won't happen initially, it will take some time for the deposition to happen. So you can just water it from above, so that once we have disturbed the upper layer of soil, the minerals have slightly gone in, and now when we do the top watering, they are going to go even more deeper. And then again when you do the watering next time, again do the top watering, so they go even more lower. So in that way you're going to do it, and the excess minerals will get flushed out of the pot. So this is how I have done. I'm just going to wait for the water to pass through the drain hole, because these guys are very dehydrated. These, as I said, are my Echeveria prolifica variegated. Usually they are very delicate succulents, but once they open up and once they grow, I will make a video on it. But I'm lucky that I happened to save a little bit of them. I was quite worried about these, whether they will be able to make it through or not, but luckily I have this bunch, and that's more than enough for me. I can make them survive and get them back to their good health. So now, as you can see, the water has started to pass through the drain hole, so I am done with top watering. I don't have to be worried. The succulent is going to take some time to recover, but that's absolutely fine. So this is how you can overcome the mineral deposition. Now it not only happens on the soil, guys, it can even happen on terracotta pots. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this, as in when your terracotta pots or the clay pots, they tend to age. Now because terracotta and clay pots are very porous, so they tend to, you know, absorb all that excess water when the evaporation happens, and then that's where all the mineral buildup happens, usually on the pots like this. Now the only option is, either you can use some kind of a cleaning agent, probably vinegar and lime, and then you have to basically remove the succulent out. That is very hectic, and then you need to just brush off all the excess minerals. Or you also tend to get this terracotta paint, not exactly paint, but it's kind of a I don't know how to put it across. Probably it's like a water kind of a paint, not exactly a paint, and you can just brush it off, so it gives a new look to your terracotta pot. It's not basically a pot, but it's kind of a earthen paint that is not harmful to plants, but it tends to give your terracotta or clay pots a new look. So the deposition can even happen on the upper layer of soil. It can even happen on your porous pots like concrete pots, terracotta pots, unglazed clay pots. It is not very frequent on plastic pots. You might find it on the in plastic pots, you might happen to find it near the drain holes. You'll find it starting to turn white, especially the black plastic pots. But in ceramic pots, it's not going to be possible, because ceramic pots are not porous, so those mineral deposition will be more present on the upper layer of soil. So all you have to do is just try to wash off as much as you can. Even if you just give up on bottom watering for a month and just concentrate on top watering, again that is going to flush off all of the minerals from the drain hole. So guys, this was all about top watering and bottom watering, the advantages and disadvantages of bottom watering. The disadvantages are very minimum. You have to just put in a little bit more efforts to turn them into advantages. So guys, I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep propagating.